Imagine the verdict is guilty, but there's no sterile courtroom, no robed judge speaking in measured tones. While formal courts, lawyers, and appeals did exist in different forms across the centuries, for many common people, justice for local offenses wasn't found in a high court. It was a community affair. Your judge and jury are your neighbors. The baker you get your bread from, the blacksmith whose kids play with yours, the woman you gossiped with just last week. They're all gathered in the town square, their faces a mix of curiosity, anger, and something that looks a lot like excitement. Your sentence is about to be carried out. You've been condemned to the pillory. And in a world stretching from the medieval through the early modern period, that didn't just mean shame. It meant the people you lived and worked with every single day were a key part of your punishment. We often think of justice back then as a top-down affair of kings, lords, and hooded executioners. But for many, the reality was far more personal and way more terrifying. Today, we're exploring the horrifying truth of a punishment where justice was literally left in the hands of the crowd. So, what kind of act could land you in a wooden frame in the middle of town? You might be picturing treason or murder. And while the pillory was used for serious crimes, many of its occupants were there for offenses that seem almost mundane to us now. The pillory was a tool for enforcing social order, and in a small, tight-knit community, anything that disrupted that order was taken very seriously. Let's say you're a baker. In a world where bread is literally the staff of life, your job comes with a huge amount of public trust. But times are tough, grain is expensive, and you have a family to feed. So, you start cutting corners. Maybe you mix in cheap fillers like sawdust or chalk. Or you hollow out the bottom of the loaf so it looks big but weighs next to nothing. This wasn't just bad customer service. It was a deep betrayal of your entire community. Under laws like the assize of bread and ale, officials like bread weighers would check the quality of goods. If you were caught, there was no quiet fine. Your punishment had to be as public as your crime. You'd be marched to the square, maybe with the shoddy loaf of bread hung around your neck. Dishonest trading was a frequent and notorious reason to be pilloried. This included brewers who watered down their ale, butchers who sold rotten meat, and merchants who used false weights. In 1615, a man in Devizes, England, was whipped and pilloried for cheating someone with forged letters, with a paper detailing his crime placed on his head for all to see. You profited in public, so you would be shamed in public. But it wasn't just about money. The pillory was a powerful tool for policing behavior. Spreading lies could ruin a reputation or destroy a marriage. Public drunkenness, brawling, or blasphemy were all on the list. These were crimes against social peace. Women accused of being a common scold, for instance, faced their own special forms of public humiliation. Most famously, the ducking stool or the scold's bridle, a horrifying iron mask designed to silence them. Then there were the more serious offenses, where public shaming blurred into state-sponsored terror. Perjury, lying under oath, was a grave sin, and speaking or writing against the church or state was even worse. This is where the pillory became an instrument of political power. For these crimes, your time in the pillory might be paired with other mutilations. One of the most infamous cases comes from the 1630s, when a Puritan physician named John Bastwick, along with two others, was sentenced by the dreaded Star Chamber Court for writing pamphlets attacking the church. Their punishment was a massive fine, life imprisonment, and to be placed in the pillory to have their ears publicly cut off. Imagine the scene. Bastwick, locked in the pillory, defiant as his wife kissed his ears just before they were sliced from his head. This wasn't just humiliation, it was a permanent walking advertisement for the power of the state. Your body became a billboard for what happens when you defy authority. So, whether you were a baker who skimped on flour, a brawler who caused a scene, or a dissident who wrote the wrong thing, the result was the same. You were now the center of attention, a piece of public theater about to begin. The walk to the town square is the first part of the ordeal. Your march through the same streets you've walked your whole life. But now every window holds a familiar face twisted into a new expression. Some look away. Others stare with cold judgment. The guards beside you aren't for your protection. They're there to make sure you arrive. And then you see it. It's a simple, crude thing of wood. A thick post with a hinged framework at the top, often on a raised platform for everyone to see. The English had an old name for it. A stretch neck. This frame has 3 holes, one for your head and 2 for your wrists. This is the pillory. Its simplicity is its brilliance. The guards shove you up onto the platform. The crowd's murmur grows louder. A magistrate reads your sentence, his voice booming across the square, detailing your crime. Then the top half of the wooden frame is lifted. You're forced to bend, to thread your head and hands through the holes. The wood is rough, splintered, and stained. With a solid, final thud, the top board slams down and is locked. The immediate feeling is one of total helplessness. Your arms are stretched wide, your neck craned forward. You can't stand straight or sit down. You can't turn your head to see who's shouting. You can't even raise your hands to shield your face. The physical discomfort is instant. Your back screams in protest, and the rough wood chafes your skin raw. The punishment was designed for shame. According to a statute from England's King Edward I, the pillory should be strong enough to hold an offender without peril to their bodies. The humiliation was the point. It was customary to shave the heads and beards of male prisoners. For women, their hair would be cut short, a deep source of shame at the time. In Paris, the pillory, or pillory, could be especially elaborate. One famous example at the Central Market, Les Halles, was a tower with a rotating wheel at the top. The condemned was locked into this wheel, which was then slowly turned so every single person in the crowd could get a good, long look. You are no longer a person. You are a spectacle. A placard might be hung around your neck, detailing your offense. You're a human scarecrow, placed in the heart of the community to frighten away sin. But the device itself is only half the punishment. It's merely the stage. The true horror is about to come from the audience. You have to understand, mass entertainment was scarce. A public punishment was a major event. It was theater, a social gathering, and a raw form of entertainment all rolled into one. People would flock from surrounding villages. It could have the grim atmosphere of a festival. And they weren't just spectators, they were a key part of the sentence. The court put you in the pillory. The crowd decided what happened to you while you were there. Their mood could be swayed by anything: the crime you committed, how popular you were, or just the general attitude of the mob that day. Their reaction could range from praise to a brutal, agonizing death. Consider the best-case scenario. The writer Daniel Defoe, famous for Robinson Crusoe. In 1703, he was sentenced to the pillory for writing a satirical pamphlet. The authorities expected the crowd to tear him apart, but Defoe was a hero to the common people. Before his sentence, he wrote a poem, Hymn to the Pillory, and his friends sold copies to the crowd. When Defoe was locked in the pillory, an amazing thing happened. Instead of rotten food and rocks, he was showered with flowers. The crowd toasted his health and cheered him on. They turned his punishment into a massive act of public defiance. The pillory, meant to be his greatest shame, became his finest hour. But Defoe's experience was the exception, a beautiful, rare anomaly. For most, the crowd was a monster. The jeering was just the start. Soon, projectiles would fly. At first, soft, humiliating things, rotten fruit, mud, animal dung. Disgusting, degrading, but not lethal. Sometimes a dead cat would be slung around the victim's neck. Locked in place, all you could do was flinch as the stinking missiles rained down, the filth caking your hair and clothes, running into your eyes and mouth. You were a target for communal disgust. But sometimes the mood would turn. A single angry voice, a single thrown stone, could give others the same idea. This is where the pillory could become a death sentence. This is where the line between public humiliation and public execution was erased. The crowd, once your neighbors, could become a lynch mob. Rotten vegetables gave way to rocks and bricks. Authorities often turned a blind eye, unable or unwilling to control the mob they'd unleashed. The sound changes. The wet splat of a tomato is replaced by the hard crack of a rock against wood, then against bone. You're blinded by blood. A brick shatters your teeth. A stone breaks your arm. With your head locked forward, you are a perfect target. We know that people were killed in the pillory, though it was an exceptional, not routine, outcome. In 1732, a man named John Waller was killed by the crowd while in a London pillory. This was the terrifying reality of the punishment. Your fate rested on the whims of the mob. Would they throw flowers or would they throw stones? The court sentenced you to an hour of shame. The crowd could upgrade that sentence to death. It was justice by popular opinion, and it was one of the most brutal and unpredictable punishments ever devised. The line between justice and mob rule has always been terrifyingly thin. If you're finding this exploration of history's dark side compelling, please consider liking this video. And let us know in the comments, what other historical punishment or strange law should we investigate next? If you survived, the ordeal wasn't over when the lock was finally undone. The hour might be up, but the sentence was for life. The physical consequences could be severe, from broken bones to the official mutilations that sometimes accompanied the pillorying, like having an ear nailed to the wood and then sliced off upon release. But even without that, the psychological trauma was profound. You had been rejected by your community in the most visceral way imaginable. How could you ever look your neighbors in the eye again? For many, the only choice was to leave and try to start over somewhere no one knew their name. It was a stigma that was almost impossible to wash off. Today, the pillory is gone, a relic of a more brutal time. But its ghost lingers. We still use the word pilloried to describe someone subjected to harsh public ridicule, especially in the media or online. The technology has changed, but the human impulse hasn't. We no longer gather in the town square with stones and rotten fruit. We gather online with hashtags and angry comments. The digital crowd can be just as fickle and just as vicious as the one from centuries ago. A person's reputation can be destroyed in hours by a virtual mob that, just like its historical predecessor, can act as judge, jury, and executioner. The story of the pillory is a dark reminder that the greatest horrors aren't always inflicted by a distant, tyrannical state, but sometimes by the very people we live among. It's a testament to the raw power of community, and a cautionary tale about what happens when justice is surrendered to the fury of the crowd. It forces us to ask, how different, really, is our world from theirs? And who holds the stones today?